Why does the black man serve the white man? Why does everything the black man do benefit the white man? Why does the black man say freedom is doing what I want to do? And why is it that everything he wants to do enriches the European?
Welcome to the desert of the real.
Peace, family. This is your brother, Mr. Holipsism, coming at you once again. I know it's been a while since you heard from me, but I've been involved in this project that I'm doing. But I'm not going to get into that because I have other videos dedicated to that. What I want to talk about is a topic I've been asked to touch on because I've used this phrase before, and people always ask me, well, what do you mean by that? And the topic that I want to touch on today is the concept of Mr. Miyagi Negroes. Now, what do I mean by Mr. Miyagi Negroes? Well, who's Mr. Miyagi? Mr. Miyagi is the teacher from the Karate Kid, the original Karate Kid episode, played by Pat Morita, or Morito, or whatever, I don't know. And the whole concept behind Mr. Miyagi was, this guy who was some kid from, Brooklyn, Bensonhurst, or whatever he was from, Jersey, I don't know, named Daniel. And he called him Daniel's son. And Daniel's son was getting bullied in his school or whatever. He was getting beat up by, the local guys who knew karate and he didn't. So Mr. Miyagi, and keep in mind, I haven't watched this damn shit in so long. I don't know whether he was a gardener or somebody who does maintenance around us. I don't know what it was. But whatever the case is, he saw what was happening to Daniel's son, and he decided that he was going to take Daniel's son and teach Daniel's son karate. And not only teach him karate, but teach him about life and, transmit all of this knowledge and this wisdom that Mr. Miyagi had compiled over the years and pass this knowledge on to Daniel's son. Now, what's got me bugged out about that? Well, I'm not going to get too far ahead of where I'm going with this. But basically, Mr. Miyagi represents those Negroes who pass their knowledge and wisdom to every other race, ethnicity, or people other than their own. Fundamentally, Mr. Miyagi Negroes are xenophiles, and I think I've spoken about xenophiles before. Xenophiles love anything that doesn't look like them and hate everything that does. Xenophobes are the opposite. Xenophobes are more comfortable with things that they are familiar with, that look like them, and they're very fearful of things that don't. So I've made this point before. Black people on the whole are xenophiles, and white folks on the whole are xenophobes. So it makes for a very interesting relationship. My main question that I had when it was dealing with Mr. Miyagi was, didn't he know any Japanese children? Like, were there any Japanese kids that were getting picked on and bullied that could have used some of that knowledge that he had? What made him pick this Italian white boy from Bensonhurst or Jersey? Well, it's because Mr. Miyagi was a xenophile. Mr. Miyagi was not interested in passing his knowledge on to other Japanese children. Mr. Miyagi wanted to take a white boy and teach him how to be Japanese, basically, rather than just dealing with Japanese children. So ultimately, for Mr. Miyagi and Mr. Miyagi Negroes, the love of their own people isn't just quite enough for them. It's like when in our time in this country during the period of segregation where we had our own industries, our own towns, our own businesses, our own leagues, like Negro leagues and stuff like that. Somehow we decided that wasn't enough. That was what they called the chitlin circuit. When we owned our own shit, that was the chitlin circuit. What we wanted was more mainstream, broad appeal. So by trying to get that mainstream, broad appeal and putting our players like Jackie Robinson into the majors and letting them get abused and be spokespeople and be dignified in the face of disrespect, we lost our industry. So Mr. Miyagi Negroes love universal and mainstream appeal because the love of their own people is just not good enough for them. Mr. Miyagi Negroes also love mimicry over authenticity. In other words, you ever had somebody who claims that they hate R&B, but then they love Robin Thicke? Or somebody who say they hate, big lips on a black woman, but they love Angelina Jolie? These are the type of Mr. Miyagi Negroes who are xenophiles that I'm talking about. It's people who love when someone can mimic the culture, but they don't love people that's actually from the culture. I remember when, like, if anybody remembers that group Hall and Oates, there was a guy at my job who was lauding over Hall and Oates, and I said, but he didn't like so-called black music. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. You do realize that the most of the people that you don't like are idols to Hall and Oates? That Hall and Oates is a white group trying to sing R&B? So you rather have the artificial or the the version of the white version of R&B rather than R&B itself. Mr. Miyagi Negro, xenophiles. Here's another example. This is just an example of loving mimicry over authenticity. You ever had these black folks that have criticized black technical MCs or real lyricists for not being entertaining enough? Like that was a big knock with Rakim. It's like, well, Rakim, he couldn't really put on a show. One of the most gifted, talented lyricists ever to grace the microphone, and they say, oh, well, he can't really perform. But they praise Eminem, and the reason why they praise him is because, well, he's a lyricist. He's really good at what he does. Well, wait a minute. How come when Rakim or Black Thought or the rest of these guys are highly technical MCs do their thing, your big gripe is, well, they too technical. Then when it comes to praise of Eminem, now all of a sudden technicality means something now. It's called Mr. Miyagi Negroes. Also, this is my biggest gripe with the Mr. Miyagi Negroes. They have a warped understanding of culture. When you really think about it, it's really something that should be a case study for psychologists. They claim to love the culture, but they don't love the people who created the culture. Now think about that. Because culture doesn't sit outside of people. The people are the culture. Culture, people are synonymous. Because if you take away people, then you don't have a culture. So how do you love the culture but not love the people who created it? Well, this is how you do it. It's when you see culture as merely an aesthetic, or an expression, and you don't look at it as a tool for power. Because that's what true culture is. Culture is a tool for power. It empowers you. A person who is knowledgeable and worships and idolizes their own culture is claiming their power by doing that. If you just look at your culture as a hairstyle or what you wear or what you eat, you are really seriously marginalizing your culture. To say that Chinese culture is Chinese food and Chinese costumes and like some Chinese cultural aesthetic and say that this represents Chinese culture, that's disrespecting Chinese culture. Because Chinese culture is empowering to the people that are in it. we don't see, well, I won't say we, Mr. Miyagi Negroes don't see it that way. Culture is merely an aesthetic. It's a culture. It's an expression. It's just, something that you wear on your sleeve. Now, here's the real mind fuck about it. To Mr. Miyagi Negroes, culture is only useful as a tool to be used against the people who created it. Think about that. Mr. Miyagi is a Japanese man. Actually, after the first Karate Kid movie, Daniel-san went on from fighting other white boys to fighting Japanese. So Mr. Miyagi was teaching a white boy from Bensonhurst or Jersey. I don't know where he was from, but he was an Italian white boy from Bensonhurst or Jersey, teaching him how to go against his own people, using the culture of his people as a tool for him to do so. Need I say more? So, in a nutshell, that's my thoughts on, and that's what I mean when I call somebody a Mr. Miyagi Negro. So, when you hear that phrase, you'll know what I'm talking about. Feel free to use it when you see it. And on that note, I'll holler at you good people later. And peace.